Welcome to Generation Gap Sportscast 6. A look in the world of sports as seen through the colorful eyes of our gang of six. Ranging in age from 25 to 70, we take you on a journey to sports heaven, discussing everything from the real to the nonsensical. We're family, and like in any family, when we don't all bleed the same team colors, well, the talk can get personal. So here we go with Sportscast 6. Uncorked, unvarnished, unrestrained, unrepentant, unseemly, and utterly unlike anything you've ever experienced before. Let's meet the family. From oldest to youngest, we've got Bob, yours truly, John, Charlie, Bobby, and Benny. All right, let's dig in tonight's hot topic, sports gambling. You know, I love the purity of sports, and I love to gamble. But somehow along the way, I get uncomfortable when big time gambling comes into play. It seems to tarnish the beauty and the innocence of sports. Charlie, what's your take?
I'm about 87% positive. Big thing to me is it generates a lot of fan interest. Fan interest is good for not only for the fans, it's good for the leagues, it's good for the teams, it's good for the owners. It creates excitement. I know here in Wisconsin, sports betting is not legal. There was a brief time period where I could go out and place bets on, for example, the Masters. Yeah, it seemed like the websites didn't quite have their blocks in place yet. Even though I didn't win money, I enjoyed the heck out of it, and it made watching the tournament a lot more interesting. So I think there's a lot of good things. There's obviously some bads. People can get addicted, run into financial problems. I think maybe the more serious problem might be if there's cheating that enters into the teams themselves with the coaches and players. Although there's huge financial interest for the leagues and teams to make sure that doesn't happen. But overall, I think it's pretty positive, and I think it's just one of those things where I think the majority of people in American society are willing to allow for sort of self-responsibility to rule, and even though there's going to be a small percentage of people that run into problems, this is the kind of thing that a free society you support and you let go.
Interesting call. Benny, what's your read?
Well, I mean, overall, I think, historically, gambling has not been the greatest thing for society. But it's something that is kind of always been there, whether it's legal or not. So it's always hard to figure out what's the best method for, dealing with that. Because, I think gambling for many people is kind of an outlet for issues in their life where they can get this quick fix. Maybe I can win $1 million, and all the people that are buying Powerball tickets, typically the people that you can just kind of tell that they don't seem like they're totally have it together in their life, so they're kind of just throwing Hail Marys every day. You go to a casino, the number of people smoking cigarettes while drinking and playing the slot machines, you could tell right away this person going through some things. But yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned about it. I think that there's a lot of people that are just going to be blowing lots of money on sports gambling, which I agree is great for the teams, great for the leagues, great for gambling. Not great for those people that, perhaps maybe they wouldn't have been doing it if it wasn't so accessible. So there may need to be, some type of regulation on that at some point. But that's neither here or there. I think when it comes to college sports, I'm especially concerned with gambling because I can see a lot of athletes that are maybe D1 level players that are good players, but not going to make the pros. They're thinking, you know what, I can make a lot of money. And, maybe I'm not getting much, NIL money, or I'm not capable of getting that, but hey, I play a role on this team. I can possibly throw a game with a couple other teammates and make $1 million or something. This has happened before. We've had, players that have gambled at college level games and thrown games. So I think there are serious concerns with college students getting targeted in the gambling industry. But, we'll just kind of see how it goes. I think that we're going to learn a lot about how this experiment plays out within the next few years. Probably a decade from now, there might be some changes with everything that's right now just being let through because people are excited about the profits for their state. So,
Ben, you kind of paint a sad stereotype of the typical gambler who enters a casino. I can share that some of the most fun times I've ever had is going to Vegas, entering the sports book at Caesar's Palace, or maybe at the Wynn and placing a few dollars on a big game. It really makes it pretty exciting and fun.
Yeah. Well, I think that someone like, if you're coming in with a sound state of mind, I think you can go there and have a good time. I've been to a casino and stuff. It's just kind of a fun thing to do or whatever. But there's a lot of people that you could tell are regulars there. And I think the regulars are usually, the people that you could tell are, they're pretty much kind of just working class people that are just kind of throwing money away, hoping that their life could be changed dramatically in a second. So I think it kind of depends. If you're going to Vegas for fun, for a weekend, and Vegas in general is a big tourist spot. So I'm thinking like, the casinos that are kind of on the river somewhere in Indiana or something like that, where people are going and, they're not going there for necessarily a great vacation, but they may be going there regularly, just trying to do something, hoping they're going to, strike some gold. So.
Sure. Bobby, you always strike me as a true sports Puritan. You're a lot like your dad that way. You really, take care to know the facts, and you really care about the integrity of the game. Gambling, does it give you any concerns in terms of where sports goes?
Yeah. And I'd like to preface this by saying I am supportive of gambling, and sports gambling in particular being legalized, really nationwide. I don't have an issue with that. I think it's something that, can drive fan interest. It can help communities, just bring in money, or sort of state bring in money, things like that. But we have to be careful at the same time. I feel like we might be on the verge of spiraling out of control a little bit here if we don't curtail this a bit. I was doing some research according to a New York Times article. As many as 8 universities have forged partnerships with sports betting companies that are funneling millions of dollars to schools in exchange for promoting gambling on campus. Now, Charlie had mentioned in our last episode, that we've had some scandals recently, namely at Iowa State. There was a situation recently at Alabama with their baseball program, and the fact that, student athletes and really anyone who's involved in athletics at a university are not allowed to place a bet on any sport that holds an NCAA championship. Yet you have these universities partnering with sports betting sites and companies to bring in money to help advertise their products. So it seems like a little bit of a mixed message to me, certainly. And then you have, a lot of students on campus that, where a lot of states, the legal gambling age is 21. The majority of the students are under that and are, getting easy access to betting there. So that's one thing we need to really be careful about. From a personal standpoint, I don't bet on sports myself. That's not really something that interests me that much. And we are just constantly now getting bombarded with advertisements, in-game betting promotion during broadcasts. Every single game I watch now, they have segments on, betting. Every radio show, they're putting it in there. And for those of us that don't really bet on sports, it's just like, I don't care. Half the stuff they're saying doesn't even make sense. And if you're not really in that world, there are some countries that are actually banning advertising from broadcasts and things like that because it's getting too out of control. And then you've also had some incidents, where student athletes are actually getting harassed online by gamblers. A player will miss a shot at the end of the game, and all of a sudden they're getting flooded in their Twitter inbox, people yelling at them for, missing the shot and costing the money and things like that. So to a degree, it's getting kind of out of control, I think, very quickly with how fast all of this has evolved, with everything being legalized so fast. I think there's going to need to be some sort of regulation at some point. But, you know, ultimately, I think it's good, but we need to be real careful with how we go forward.
Bob, the wise one. Certainly, you've got sort of an historical thread here you can weave for us in terms of how we should be looking at this.
Well, one of the things that Bobby mentioned immediately comes to mind. Watching games on television now, the distraction factor that comes with all the little betting notes is actually kind of an annoyance. I'm not interested in messaging about bets and odds on every single at bat in a baseball game and so on and so forth. It just, set that aside or do it on a special channel. Maybe that will be the way this will drift at some point. The NIL money in combination with betting, this also adds on to something Bobby was talking about, does create kind of a dangerous cocktail where you have athletes making money. There are going to be expectations to perform, and then you place on top of that the outcomes of bets, which for some people could involve a lot of money. And it's easy to see where college athletes could catch a lot of heat that they are not accustomed to in the past. This whole gaming business, it's interesting how this has evolved. Had a scandal back in the 1950s in New York, like the University of Manhattan and some other schools had some trouble. And then everybody clamped down on betting to push that aside. So this resurrection of betting on a very large scale is something new. I don't think we can really predict where this is going to head. Personally, though, it's kind of interesting to me the way people respond to gaming. This is absolutely trivial, but when Bobby and Benny and their sister were playing ice hockey as kids, one of the things that the Hockey Association did, it was a private association, was to run bingo every Friday night in St. Joseph, Missouri. And one of my duties as a parent was to be there and help run bingo once a week on Friday nights. It was really great. Love to do it. Yeah. And they drew big crowds of folks who were really excited about their bingo cards. And people would walk in and buy 20, 30 cards. You'd see some old women, especially, maybe playing 10 cards at a time through every single round. You actually had to get pretty good at this to hang with them. And then the casinos opened up on some of the regional, tribal reservations, and that drew traffic away. And now, in turn, a lot of the casinos are losing traffic to online betting. So there are interesting economic dominoes that topple with all of this. But again, I don't think we know what the outcome is, but I do fear it's going to be it's going to come with some problems. I don't see any legal or constitutional justification for banning it off the cuff. So we'll just have to figure it out.
I think you're right. I think there's a danger of it getting out of hand, but until we start bouncing off some of those walls, it's going to be hard to figure out how we're going to rein it in. Maybe it'd be a lot of fun, pretty exciting if you keep sports on the front page, but there's danger and peril that comes with it.
Maybe we should just allow people to make bets on our show based on what we do in the show. We can take part in this in the gambling industry.
You know what? But then, Benny, can people actually trust what you say?
Well,
I mean, hey, the next.
Well, I don't know. Make it
say like, point do you become part of the problem?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe we are part of the problem by talking about it. So
I don't know. I just bet against whatever he says.
Well, I mean,
there's some crazy ironies here.
I was thinking that people can make bets on, like, oh, what drink is John going to have today? Or what?
Well, it can be a lot like, people who trumpet their own stock, right? They try to boost the price or say something, actually make the price fall so they can buy more of it. It's kind of dangerous. So you can't always trust the information that's coming at you, no matter who's delivering it. Okay. Well, I think it's time we tip a glass. Charlie, you want to lead us to our drinking segment?
I want to, as long as we're predicting, I do want to predict what you've got there. I think you're drinking vodka.
You think I am?
Yeah.
Well, you know, in my world, I like different kinds of beer. Now, I'm a bourbon guy, too. I got a bourbon gathering coming up here soon. But I'm trying to find all the unique Pilsners that I can find, pour them in a Pilsner glass, and see what we've got. Now, this particular one, I think it's Bob can probably help me with this. It looks like it should be pronounced Czechvar. Be a Czech Pilsner. Now, Bob, you're on mute, so I have no idea what you're saying.
Sorry, those Czech beers are well regarded internationally.
Well, to me, I really like them. I've not had this particular one. Maybe Charlie's had this one. I don't know.
You know what's familiar to me? I can't place it exactly, but I do like most Czech beers.
Yeah, if you're going to enjoy a Pilsner beer, you got to put it in a true Pilsner glass. Otherwise, you don't get the full impact of the flavor. It's like when you're drinking bourbon, you really got to have like a bourbon sniffer, a whiskey sniffer to have it. Here we go. Got a nice color to it. Smells good.
Hope you were watching that, Benny. I've seen Benny try to pour a beer before, and it's
good. It's good. It's a very good beer. Like we were talking about last week with the New Glarus Pilsner. It's very good. I think I've had a better one, but this is very enjoyable and refreshing. Thank you.
So are you planning to have a lot of Czech beers at your bourbon party?
If I get my hands on them, I would.
All right, cool.
If you got a pipeline for some, let me know.
Okay. I stuck with a bourbon tonight. I've been kind of bouncing back and forth between bourbons and beers. Got a Weller Special Reserve, 90 proof, probably the lowest proof in my personal collection. It's a wheated bourbon, which makes it a little mellower, kind of nice in the summertime. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. Didn't put it in a snifter tonight, but this is kind of a tier 2 bourbon glass, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Wonderful.
Benny, what's going on there?
Well, today I have a Coors banquet beer. Some people may get just regular Coors, but I think Coors banquet beer is actually better, so I choose to do that. But what would you say?
Banquet is regular Coors. What are you talking about?
Well, banquet. What is it? They're just like Coors Light or something? I don't know.
Yeah, Coors Light is Coors Light.
That's like the popular one, though. Most people just get Coors Light.
Okay.
So why don't you shut up, Bobby?
Just trying to educate you.
Get out. This is my time to talk to my fans, and you're interrupting me. So stay out of it. Jesus. Anyway, for fans out there, Coors Banquet Beer is probably the best Coors version you can get, unless you're Bobby, who's nuts. Carry on, Charlie.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens to sales of Coors Banquet Beer the next couple of weeks. Beers and social media have a checkered recent past.
I'm not going to come down on either side of this particular topic, but I can tell you that when I have driven the beverage cart at the local golf course, because it's too cheap to hire somebody else to do it with prettier legs than me. But anyway, normally about a fifth and a fourth of the sales would go to Bud Light. The other night, I sold 0 Bud Lights. So I'm not going to get into the politics of that. I'm just saying that social media certainly does play a factor in terms of how beer sells.
All righty then. Bobby, what are you drinking this evening?
Tonight, I have it's called Kansas Lager from the Fields and Ivory Brewery in Lawrence, Kansas.
Looks like you're drinking cough syrup or something.
Pretty good.
It's a unique bottle.
Real impressive label, as you can see.
Yeah.
And they are in this book celebrating Kansas breweries, which was a birthday present from my dad. So see if I can go through the whole book.
Yeah. Is that brewery doing pretty well as far as you know?
Well, I had never heard of it before this book. It is ranked number 4 for Lawrence. So Lawrence has some good breweries. So it's at least it's on the list. But yeah,
what's number one?
They have it's a small brewery, so Free State I think would probably be number one.
That makes sense. That's what I was gonna guess.
Bob, you normally have something that's a little more out of the mainstream. What can you share tonight?
This is a Belgian-style wheat ale called White Tide. It's got orange peel and coriander for those of you who have sensitive palates and want that hint of thyme or parsley in your beer. I haven't actually tasted it yet because I forgot to bring a bottle opener and it's not a twist cap. You know I'm all about convenience. The screw-on, screw-off caps are my favorite. But I'll enjoy this in a little while. It'll still probably be cold, and I'll be able to give a more detailed report somewhere down the road. But it's a nice-looking bottle.
I would think your two sons might be able to coach you through an alternative method for opening that bottle.
Perhaps. I'm sure if
you have a lighter, you could do it, or end of a table, you could snap it on, or snap it off that way.
Yeah, there's nothing right at hand that really serves that purpose.
Or if you're really hardcore, like some people I met in college, you can use your teeth. But
yeah, I'm not that hardcore. No. My teeth are in fairly good shape. I'm going to try to keep it that way a little while longer.
All right.
Yeah, especially with this podcast. You don't want to have missing teeth.
That's right. That's right. It's all about how we look, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. No question about it. This is one good-looking team. We don't want to screw that up. All right, Bob, can you walk us down into the world of some sort of obscure sport and tell us what's going on?
Yeah, there are a couple of interesting things in the past week. Some of you may have noticed in the FA Championship in Women's Premier League soccer in England. Chelsea beat Arsenal 1-0 a week ago. And what's amazing is they had 77,000 fans. They take their football pretty seriously in England. And it's clear that in some European venues, women's soccer is breaking through as a big-time event. Now, that's not to suggest they're drawing crowds like that on a regular basis, but that's still a noteworthy milestone. Meanwhile, closer to home, also relating to women's sports, the NAIA, the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, which is a small-time outfit, not necessarily numerically, involves a lot of schools, but small-time in terms of its profile compared to the NCAA. The NAIA recently had its third women's flag football national championship. They call flag football an emergent sport, and it's I don't know, I've got 20, 30 schools participating at this point. For the third straight year, the national champion is little Ottawa University in Kansas, which is just 15 miles or so south of Lawrence. So we make yet another reference to Lawrence, Kansas. So you can stop at the Free State Brewery and Restaurant on your way to Ottawa, then go to the game.
I didn't know you could do that. That sounds wonderful. All right. So, individual news updates. What are you guys seeing out there, Benny?
Well, things have been interesting. I suppose, for those who are concerned about NBA, I do realize that my prediction is not looking good on the surface for the Celtics, given they are down 3-0. But I will say that's just a small little hiccup on the way to the NBA Finals. Game tonight. I'm sure we're gonna just get a little bit of a course correction there. If we don't,
correct me if I'm wrong, Benny, but no NBA team has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit in the playoffs.
True, but no NBA team has been this specific Celtics team either. So bounces out. Anyway, just in case, let's say hypothetically the Celtics lose tonight, I will say there are some serious concerns for the future of that team. A few thoughts from just how the series has gone so far. First off, Joe Mazzulla, the coach of the Celtics, rookie coach, so it's always a little hard to gauge a rookie season. But if the Celtics get swept, there's already rumors talking about he could get fired, which would be kind of a pretty sad story to finish. What a miraculous story he was, going from an assistant, just surprised at the beginning of the season because Ime Udoka, was forced to leave the team given some allegations, and so it would be kind of a depressing end for him. But it does seem like he may be struggling against Eric Spoelstra, who obviously is, one of the best in the league for coaches. So the other thing, though, has been really concerning, I think, so far is just the play by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You would expect a lot more from them, and they have not showed up much in this series against the Heat. Playing a bunch of undrafted players. The Heat have been dominating with, led by Jimmy Butler, who's been an absolute superstar. So right now, if the Celtics were to get swept, I would kind of find it hard to believe that Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum are like a true superstar, just because they're not consistently showing up enough in the playoffs. It'd be one thing if one of them was dropping like 30 points consistently every playoff game and we still lose. Okay, but if he's at least dropping the points, you would think that, okay, he's still doing his job. But they both scored, I think, under 15 or something last game. So it's pretty disturbing. Long gone for me right now. It just feels like, wow, long gone are the days when, the Celtics had Pierce and Garnett and Ray Allen, and those glory days. And that team was, competing for a championship every year and they were always showing up. So yeah, I don't know. This team could get broken up after this year, potentially. Maybe they'll get one more run after that, but the writing's on the wall, I think, if they get swept. So we'll see with that. Other news, in terms of American soccer, Team USA, which in the World Cup really suffered from not having a true striker, a true goal scorer on the team, recently had someone that transferred to Team USA. His name is Folarin. I probably could butcher this, but Folarin Balogun. And he is a real, actually good striker playing in the French league and doing really well, and could be a huge piece for the next World Cup, which is going to be in the US in 2026. He's someone that's been scoring a lot of goals in the French league, which is one of the best leagues in the world. And he's only 21 years old. So good things looking forward for Team USA when it comes to soccer.
Good deal. Bobby, what you got?
Hey, can I a quick question, Ben? With the guy that transferred, does he have to have any natural connection to the United States, or can he just transfer?
No, he has to have he was born in the U.S., so
okay.
He was born in New York City, and I think before he was playing for the English team, but recently transferred, and so yeah, as long as you have some type of connection to the U.S., you're allowed to transfer one time. You get one transfer apparently in your career, and so this is it. He was born in New York City, so I guess that makes sense. And yeah, we're happy to have him because we don't really have a true striker right now, and now we got one. So
cool, Bobby.
Yeah, NHL playoffs continue to be as unpredictable as ever. Florida Panthers are up 3-0 on the Carolina Hurricanes right now. So you got that 8 seed getting real close on the Stanley Cup Finals. It's a team, led by goalie Sergei Bobrovsky, who's had an outstanding playoffs. It's a team that's really underachieved for the last few years, and they hadn't really had much playoff success. And this year they barely get into the playoffs, and they have no pressure on them, and they're just rolling. So they're looking like the best overall team right now. And it's actually interesting, John. I think you had mentioned early in the predictions that we had before these playoffs started that there tends to be cities that kind of feed off of each other come playoff time. We're seeing that right now, but it's 2 8 seeds doing it. You got the Miami Heat are up 3-0, and the Florida Panthers are up 3-0. Both looking like arguably favorites, or at least can have a heck of a shot at. So that's pretty wild. And then on the West, you got the Vegas Golden Knights up 2-0 on the Stars. But that's still up for grabs. It's going back to Dallas for game 3. So if the Stars can win game 3, they'll be right back in it. They have a better goalie, in my opinion, and they just haven't played that well. So I don't think the Stars are done by any means. One other NHL note, the Arizona Coyotes are likely going to be relocating. The residents of Tempe, Arizona voted down a measure to have an arena built there. And the Coyotes, it's been kind of a mess. I mean, right now they're playing in a college arena at the Arizona State University. And it's pretty clear it's just not working there in Arizona. So they are most likely going to be moving. There are some cities that have been, brought up as potential suitors. You got Houston, Salt Lake City, Hartford, Kansas City. Could be Quebec. So there's a few different cities it could potentially be. But looks like the Coyotes are likely going to be done after maybe this next season in Arizona. I would personally like to thank the residents of Tempe for voting this down, not only because Kansas City now has a chance to have an NHL team, but perhaps more importantly, Gopher superstar freshman Logan Cooley, who was drafted by the Arizona Coyotes, has decided he does not want to deal with that soap opera, and he's going to come back for his sophomore year for the Gophers this next season. So instead of jumping to the NHL, which he probably would have done, he's coming back because he doesn't want to deal with that mess.
So he's going to try to break the Gophers' long slide and get them back into the championship game with a win. All right. Bob, what you got?
Well, I filled you in on lacrosse a little bit last time, along with Bobby. We're down to a Final Four in NCAA men's lacrosse. Notre Dame, Virginia, Duke, and Penn State. The Virginia Duke are longtime frequent visitors to the Final Four. Notre Dame and especially Penn State is a more recent visitor. But it looks to be pretty competitive. It's been a terrific tournament up to this point. Game after game has been decided by only 1 or 2 goals. Some pretty thrilling contests, and it's been freewheeling and a lot of fun for the fans. Georgetown beat Yale 19-17 in what was a real shootout with it was practically a goal a minute. So it's been highly entertaining. And this weekend is the Memorial Day weekend is the traditional weekend for the Final Four. And I'll stick with my pick of Duke for the national champion. One other note, I mentioned Nottingham Forest, maybe back in our first session. Nottingham Forest made it back up to the Premier League in England this year. They had been relegated for quite some time. And of course, that's how they do it in English football, which is kind of an interesting element. Think how few teams would tank in American sports if to finish among the bottom 3 would get you relegated to the next league down. That alone becomes pretty entertaining. So this season, coming into the past weekend, Nottingham Forest was living on the edge of being relegated back down, but they came up with a huge victory against Arsenal, one of the top teams in the Premier League, beat them 1-0, and the stadium in Nottingham was packed, and it was rocking. And so they have managed to stay afloat and are entitled to return next year. I suppose you could compare it to professional golf and getting an invite to the Masters or the U.S. Open or whatnot. You got to prove you belong, or you won't get to play.
Good call. And Charlie.
Well, PGA Tour completed its second of its 4 majors this last weekend with the PGA Championship, which was held at Oak Hill in Rochester, New York. A lot of interesting storylines. The tournament was won by Brooks Koepka. who, as we've talked about before, left the PGA Tour for the Live Tour last season. He was a fairly unpopular player before he left. He became probably less popular since. I think a lot of people would consider him arrogant, and he always had a little bit of an seemingly kind of an FU attitude whenever he was being interviewed. But he's really good. He plays with a chip on his shoulder, and he shows up for major after major after major. He shot 9 under par, which on a really, really tough setup, I think there were only 11 players that shot under par for the tournament, which was pretty unusual. But he has now won 9 PGA Tour events during his career, and 5 are majors. That's an unheard of ratio. So when the heat's really on, he shows up. Another interesting aspect of what he did is it was believed that the guys that went to the Live Tour would have a very low chance, if maybe no chance, of qualifying for the upcoming Ryder Cup team, which is going to be competing in Italy in September. And now, despite having played in only 2 PGA Tour sanctioned events, he played in the Masters and he played in the PGA. He was tied for second in the Masters. He won the PGA. He's now second in the rankings to gain a spot on the Ryder Cup team. There's some discussion about whether the powers that be would let him compete in that team anyway, but it kind of sounds like their captain, Zach Johnson's open to it. And Scotty Scheffler, who's currently the best player in the United States, he basically said, I don't care where a guy's playing. I don't care what tour he's on. If he's one of the best Americans, I want him on the team. So the tide seems to be moving in Koepka's favor. Sort of on the total opposite end of the spectrum from Koepka is what happened with Michael Block, who was a PGA club professional from Mission Viejo, California, a guy who doesn't play on the tour, a guy who's out picking range balls and giving lessons every day of the week. But he happens to be a really good stick. And he was on the cusp of contention throughout the tournament. Things were getting a little wobbly the last day, and then he slam dunked a hole-in-one on the 15th hole, made an 8-foot putt on the last hole to earn an invitation back to next year's PGA. And for anybody who saw him interviewed during the tournament or afterward, as much as you might not like Brooks Koepka, you cannot help but love this guy. He's just a really humble guy, was thankful for the moment, and he's really easy to root for. And as luck would have it, he's now been reinvited to play not only next year's PGA, but he'll be teeing it up this Thursday in Texas at the Charles Schwab Colonial. So he got earned that invite as well. So anyway, just a cool story.
That's cool. That's a real feel-good story. All sports needs that once in a while.
Yep.
So on to predictions. And I'm going to toot my horn just a little bit here. This group, I think I'm the only person who's driven an open wheel race car. Actually drove it on the Oval at Vegas, which is a major speedway. Probably the only one here who's called out, gentlemen, start your engines on multiple racetracks. Actually driven a car at the Indian Speedway, and shared beers with a number of Indy car racing legends. Actually spent time on Al Unser's waterbed in his luxury trailer. So I know a lot about watching good racing. As to who can win, I don't know any more than you guys do. But I will say this, in that sport, follow the money. It's the race teams with the really big purses behind them. They can buy the best technology, have the best cars, and are going to be teed up and be the best shape to win the Indy 500. Benny, you are on the ground. Right there, ground zero, Indy. What are we going to see?
Well, you can feel the intensity right now as we speak. Actually, it's kind of funny when they do the Indy 500 parade. It goes right in front of my apartment complex, so I get to see kind of the parade routes and all the police cars like taking all the different Indy 500 event cars and stuff to the racetrack because it's about probably 8-minute drive from where I live. So, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be an interesting race. If you look at the history of the Indy 500, it's been going on since 1911, and it is the largest single day sporting event in the world where you have, let's see, the record they set for attendance was 350,000 people. So they're always in the hundreds of thousands. It's actually completely insane how many people they fit there at the racetrack. And it also, by the way, when it comes to speed, everyone likes to think about fast cars. The Indy car actually goes faster than both the Formula One car and, of course, the NASCAR cars. So it tops out at 236 miles per hour is the record set by an Indy car. So they can go pretty blazing fast. But in terms of predictions for me, last year, the person that won was the Indy 500 was Marcus Ericsson from Sweden. And he's ranked third right now in IndyCar series. So though it hasn't been done very often, there have been a few people that have won back-to-back Indy 500s. So I'm going to go and say that Marcus Ericsson's actually going to win it again. He's one of the top drivers. He's not considered the favorite for this race. Currently, right now, when it comes to betting odds, the favorite is, let's see, what was it? I think it's Alex Palou. Yeah. Okay. It's Alex. I think Palou is the favorite right now, who also happens to be the top ranked driver. So that makes sense. But yeah, I'm going to go with Ericsson. I just like the idea of someone winning it back to back since it doesn't happen very often. But kind of another fun fact is that the person that's actually won the Indy 500 the most times is Helio Castroneves, who's won it 4 times. So you never know if he could win it again. That would be pretty remarkable. But
okay, so Charlie, what do you think?
Well, the pronunciation is actually Palou. I've been an Alex Palou fan ever since he hit the circuit, and he is the favorite. Sometimes when it feels obvious, your gut says it can't happen, but he's the pole sitter. He's been in the top 10 at all 5 of his races this year. He's been in the top 10 of the last 2 Indy 500s, including a runner-up in 2021. It just seems to me that Palou has paid his dues. So in this case, I'm going to go a little bit against my gut, and I'm going to pick the favorite, Alex Palou.
Okay. Bob, what do you think?
I've been theorizing about how to approach this. I've got to admit, I've been impressed by the kind of mystical formulas that Charlie relies on often to forecast winners. My theory about Indy racing is it's a little like the Kentucky Derby or the Preakness. Chances are it's not going to be the favorite who's going to win, but it's probably going to be somebody who's in that front third. I like Alex Rossi, who's got a Chevy car. He's with the Arrow McLaren team this year. He actually won as a rookie back in 2016. He's done well in the circuit. He's been up near the top in some recent events. I figure he's about due. He's got the 7th best qualifying time, so he fits neatly in that top orbit that I'm thinking about, and I figure he's got as good a shot as anyone.
All right. And Bobby.
So I have the correct answer here. I am going with Pato O'Ward of Mexico. And the reason I came up with him is he has a cool sounding name. And that seems to have worked for Charlie in the past. So I'm going to go with that. And I feel like he's going to win.
All right. Got my money on Helio, guys. I think he's going to get another one. All right. Well, hope all our fans out there enjoyed another great segment here of the Generation Gap Sports. We look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everyone.